Thanks, Dr. Dorea, for the introduction, and I would like to direct my warm thanks to Professor Ashraf Salim for coming to share us in the session. Today it's a sort of basic lecture or a sort of academic lecture for the practice. It's a reading mammogram and VIRAD's scoring system. Mammography is a special type of X-ray imaging used to create detailed image of the breast. Mammography plays an important role in the early detection of breast cancer, detecting about 75% of cancer at least a year before they can be felt. Mammography uses low-dose ionizing radiation, which may be harmful to the patients. Nevertheless, the benefits of mammography far outweigh the risks and inconvenience. Also, as you all know, we have screening mammography for routine checkup and diagnostic mammography for directed to ladies having breast problem. We make traditionally two views, the craniocaudal and the mediolateral oblique. This is an example of the craniocaudal, and this is the mediolateral oblique. High-quality mammogram is essential to reach accurate diagnosis for mammogram. We should see the pectoralis line in both the craniocaudal and the mediolateral oblique view. You have to see the nipple in profile and the skin line. For interpretation, we usually interpret in a mirror image fashion, and we have to compare similar areas. The mammography report should include comments on the breast density, ACR score that was covered by Petro. The mammography findings, we have cardinal mammography signs. We have to comment either negative or positive, like having masses, microcalcification, and asymmetric densities. And we have other abnormalities like architecture distortion, skin changes, nipple areola changes, and axillary lymphadenopathy. And then you have to make your diagnosis, and to give the VIRAD score, we will come to it later, and you give your recommendation for biopsy, MRI, and so on. The breast density score is very important. We classify the breast density, as mentioned by Petro, into four categories. The completely fatty breast is a score 1, the scattered fibroglandular tissue is a score 2, representing 1/3 of the breast stroma, and ACR 3 is given when having 2/3 of the breast density made of glandular tissue, and the totally or extremely dense breast is a score ACR 4. The American Cancer Society considers women with extremely dense breasts to be at moderate risk of cancer and recommend adding MRI to their screening yearly. Now we are going to cover the main findings. We will start with mass lesion. Generally, most of breast abnormalities present in the mammogram as a mass density. The breast mass or lump should be a three-dimensional tissue structure sufficiently different to be differentiated from the surrounding tissue. When we have to analyze the mass, first we have to give the location, the quadrant location, and then the clockwise location, and very important to consider the location identification, meaning that we can classify the breast from the nipple to the periphery, and through central zone, mid-zone, and peripheral zone. You can give measurements from the lesion to the skin, from the lesion to the pectoralis muscle, from the lesion to the nipple, and this will facilitate or help the surgeon if planned surgery is to be done. Regarding the breast size, any lesion, regardless of the size, should be considered malignant based on the morphological criteria, not based on the size. The detection of invasive cancer at a size of 1 centimeter or less is an achievable goal nowadays. We have also to comment on the number, solitary lesion or multiple lesion, and if multiple, multicentric or multifocal. To differentiate between multifocal and multifocal is given when we have two lesions in the same quadrant or two lesions in this two adjacent quadrants, but the distance between the two is less than 4 centimeters. And we call the lesion multicentric. Breast cancer is multicentric if having the two lesions in two different quadrants, or the distance between the lesions in the same breast or two adjacent quadrants more than 4 centimeters. This is very important because the management protocol will differ. When having multifocal carcinoma, it can be treated by conserving surgery, but when having multicentric carcinoma, that would be treated by mastectomy. So it's very important to comment on this. Also, don't be, when you find an abnormality, don't overlook the other breast. You have to find lesions in the other breast, because we all know that some of the carcinomas present bilateral, like inflammatory breast carcinoma and lobular carcinoma, like in this case. Then after that, we will go for the density. All breast masses are dense, excluding the lucent lesion. When having lucency in the mass, this indicates the presence of fat. And fat-containing lesions are almost always benign, like galactosile, like lipoma, like intramammary lymph nodes. Then we will analyze the mass. The very, very important, the borders of the mass. The mass borders can be categorized into well-defined, microlobulated, obscured margin. Obscured margin means that we cannot see all the margins, so it could be very well defined but masked by the glandular tissue. We call it obscured margin. When we cannot draw the lesion all around, this is the ill-defined margin. The circulated margin is a regular margin. And also the shape of the lesion is very important. The well-defined or rounded and ovoid lesion are given to benign lesion. The lobulated is probably benign, and the irregular outline for malignant lesions. These are examples of rounded dense lesion, which is a completely benign lesion. This is another well-defined lesion with macrocalcification in involuted fibroadenoma. And here, this is an example of obscured margin. We have a well-defined lesion, but we cannot clearly comment on the margin at this aspect. This is an example of lobulated outline, but with minimal speculation at this part of the lesion. We have to carefully analyze the lesion. We have here another example of speculated mass, and we have here a lobulated outline mass, but also with some obscured margin. Another example of lobular outline with obscured margin here. Here we have a well-defined lesion as well, ovoid, but with partially obscured margin. This does not indicate it's a malignant lesion, but it could be a breast cyst. We have to look for it in ultrasound. This is another example, rounded lesion, but with partially obscured margin here. Associated signs may be helpful to carefully analyze the lesion. The halo sign is an indication of benignity. It means the lesion is capsulated. It's also common with breast cysts. This is fibrocystic disease. Skin thickening is a very, very important sign. Skin thickening could be a sign of inflammatory breast carcinoma. Skin thickening indicates lymphatic infiltration, and when associated with parenchymal edema, we have to consider inflammatory breast carcinoma. Skin thickening is different than skin invasion. When we have a focal indentation of the skin close to the lesion, this is skin invasion. And also very important to differentiate, because skin thickening of inflammatory breast carcinoma managed by mastectomy and chemotherapy, while skin invasion, we can preserve the breast. Navel retraction is a very important associated sign with breast cancer, and architectural distortion. Architectural distortion is the pathology seen in mammography. It is a desmoplastic reaction that usually surrounds the malignant lesion. Also, in having axillary lymph node, it's with special criteria we will cover in the lecture of lymph node. It will be an indication, could be an indication of breast cancer. Associated signs also include calcification, whether it is benign or secretory calcification of fibrocystic or clustered casting ductal microcalcification of malignancy. Then coming to the second most cardinal sign, which is asymmetric density. By asymmetric density, we mean it's a localized change in the mammary parenchyma, but it's not a mass. It can change its appearance between the two mammograms, or it may appear in one view and not in the other view. Here we have an asymmetric density. When analyzed by ultrasound, we found a mass lesion. So asymmetric density could be a carcinoma. Asymmetric density may be the carcinoma associated with skin changes in inflammatory breast carcinoma. Here we have an asymmetric density. By ultrasound, we only have edema, but on MRI, we can see the enhancing mass and enhancing skin changes and parenchymal edema, as well as axillary lymph nodes. The lesion gives type 3 curve with positive washout, which is an indication of malignancy. As you can see here, it's only very subtle asymmetric density. If you compare to the other side, we have here a small asymmetric density. It's also seen in the other view. We have a small asymmetric density here. This is the tomosynthesis of the same patient. We can see very nicely the desmoplastic reaction and the distortion associated with this small asymmetric density, and this proves the carcinoma. Here is another example, but by tomosynthesis we can exclude being carcinoma, just stromal hyperplasia or glandular condensation. Here is another asymmetric density associated with parenchymal retraction. This case was biopsied using the blast, and it was invasive duct lobular carcinoma. So asymmetric density could be a sign of breast cancer, and we have to further analyze it. We can use our tools like 3D tomosynthesis, ultrasound, MRI, or we may go for biopsy and localization. Breast calcification is very important sign of breast cancer. Calcification within the breast can occur both in benign and malignant process. 80% of benign malignant breast calcification occur in mammogram, appear in mammogram. 20% present only with microcalcification. The exact cause of microcalcification is unknown, but maybe due to mineralization of the necrotic tissue. When you examine the mammogram for microcalcification, you better use the magnification. When calcification is present in the mammogram, it could be categorized as benign, malignant, or indeterminate, and we depend on the size, number, distribution, and morphology. For benign calcification, there are several types, like the milk of calcium, secretory, involution, arterial, and skin calcification. This is an example of milk of calcium within the cysts. Milk of calcium within the cysts is better to take like 90-degree view in order to see, to appreciate it. Here is ceromatous vascular calcification, and it is important to know that if arterial calcification is evident on mammogram, new studies suggest that the woman could be suffering from coronary artery disease. And this present the mammogram as a screening method not only for breast cancer but also for coronary artery cardiac risk. This is an example of secretory microcalcification, and this is an involuting fibroadenoma. For the malignant microcalcification, it is very important. Malignant microcalcification has a pleomorphism everywhere, meaning that it is different or variable in size, form, density, and number and shape. Okay? So this is very important. As regards the size, the malignant microcalcification usually 0.5 millimeter or less. Calcification above 2 millimeter, usually a benign process. Generally speaking, microcalcifications are associated with a malignant process, and macrocalcification are associated with benign process. Based on the number, the higher the number, the higher the possibility of malignancy when being in cluster. The minimum number of calcification to say malignancy is 4, 5, or 6. However, no number is absolute. You may have a cluster of 2 or 3 pleomorphic shape, and you can say it's a malignant calcification. This morphology is very important. For malignant microcalcifications, the irregular shape, including the small fragment of broken glass. The small fragment of broken glass, we call it amorphous or heterogeneous calcification, is very important sign of malignancy. Pleomorphic and linear microcalcification. So amorphous, pleomorphic fine, and pleomorphic linear are important signs. This is how the heterogeneous amorphous calcification looks like. And this is the fine pleomorphic microcalcification. You can appreciate the difference in densities of the clusters. And this is the example of fine linear microcalcifications. In a study done to use the microcalcification descriptor for biorats, they appreciated that 30 fine pleomorphic microcalcification was has the highest probability of being associated with cancer, followed by the amorphous microcalcification and then the fine linear microcalcification. According to the distribution, we can categorize as cluster, segmental, regional, and diffuse. Malignant calcification usually occurs with clusters and segmental microcalcification, but when having regional and diffuse calcification usually excludes malignancy. This is the two main important distribution, the fine linear and the cluster microcalcification. When to biopsy microcalcification, it's very important to biopsy microcalcification when we categorize it as high probability and intermediate probability. And we categorize high probability when having fine linear and fine pleomorphic, and based on the distribution when being a cluster and sector casting. And the intermediate probability is the coarse heterogeneous amorphous microcalcification and distributed in a large area. And we biopsy, as you all know, by core needle biopsy, vacuum-assisted, wire localization, and ultrasound-guided if having the microcalcification seen in ultrasound. This is example of biopsy, wire localization. We will cover it tomorrow, inshallah. This is an example of breast lesion excision of microcalcification. The BI-RADS, finally, the BI-RADS is the American College of Radiologists set the standard for rating mammogram, which is called the BI-RADS Breast Imaging Reporting and Data System, which is a widely accepted risk assessment, quality assurance, and tool for mammography, ultrasound, and MRI. The latest classifies the BI-RADS into 0 category and then followed by 6 other categories. The category 0 when having incomplete study, or you have the study is non-informative. Negative when having nothing in the mammogram, it's completely normal. When benign, when you can definitely say it's benign, 100% benign. Probably benign if the abnormality is like 98% benign, or for most of the benign solid lesion being first seen. Suspicious abnormality when having criteria of goes with malignancy, like from 3 to 94%. Highly suspicious when having all the criteria typical for malignancy, and BI-RADS 6 is given when having pathology proven breast cancer, like cases on follow-up of chemotherapy or previous cancer. This is an example of BI-RADS category 0. We have here a heterogeneously dense mammogram. It's non-informative. We need to do a complementary study, so it is a category 0. This is an example category 1. This is an example of category 2, which is benign secretory calcification, involuted fibroadenomas, and fibroadenolipoma. Because we said before, the presence of fat in the lesion is an indication of benignity, the breast cyst, the galactosele. The probably benign lesion when having no suspicious criteria, but when the first time you saw the lesion without fat and without calcification. Category 4 is further categorized into low level of suspicion, moderate level of suspicion B and C, high level of suspicion, like indeterminate microcalcification. Category 5 when having the full criteria of malignancy, speculated mass, associated lymph node, architecture distortion, big lymph node. Typical clustered microcalcification, inflammatory breast carcinoma, very hard lesion on elastography. Category 6, when the lesion is pathologically proven, here we have a breast carcinoma on chemotherapy with a clip inside. This is the proven carcinoma on follow-up, and it was vanished after chemotherapy and then was localized. We localized the clip for further conserving surgery. Thank you very much for your attention.